This session now is going to be more, I think, complex, but also one of the most, all of the session are really interesting. But this one has a special, for me, has a special, I'm going to say, corner in my heart, I would say. In the last few months, I'm working a lot with both Neus Colette and Raquel Ballesteros, and they are supporting me with one pre-commercial procurement that we are carrying out here in Catalonia. That is funding from the European Commission. So because of this, it's somehow is a session that comes from the experience, let's say in this way. We have Neus Colette, that she is the technical secretariat of the Catalonian Public Procurement Advisory Board of the Catalonia region. And then we have Raquel Ballesteros, that she leads the public law and public procurement practice in the law firm Bird & Bird. So let's start from Neus and then Raquel.
Thank you very much, Rosanna. Good morning. First of all, let me please thank you for attending. Also to congratulate the organizers for the success of the event and thank them too for the invitation to participate. So in my exposition, I'll try to give a legal approach of PPI, but I would like to take this opportunity to talk to you about the need of a deep change in the design and managing of the contracts as well. And this for being able to introduce innovation in public procurement. It's not easy. So my presentation has two parts. First, an overview about legal framework and some notions of PPI. And second, some proposals about the new requirements in managing of PPI. Anyway, as I have, I think, only 10 minutes for my exposition, and it's impossible to explain all the slides fully. I leave them at your disposal, and I'll try to focus on the most interesting aspects of each of them. So let me start. First of all, about legal framework in Catalonia and Spain. We have a complex legal framework because we have three layers of laws to apply. First of all, we have the European directives in public procurement. You know, the last are the three directives of 2014, but it's a directive number 24 about legal rules, the main reference for PPI. And secondly, we have a Spanish basic law in public procurement. And thirdly, we usually have some partial laws from regional parliament in public procurement. Now, we need to rethink public procurement classic schemes because new directives impose some strategic approach for public procurement, and this involves a different approach in the legal framework, but even in its managing. Summarizing, we have to change the classic scheme where procurement is mainly an instrument for budget execution and saving, immediate savings. Now we have to consider other aspects as efficiencies and mainly innovation aspects. Certainly, although the prior European directives open some ways to purchase innovative solutions, are the 2014 directives the ones that really open more and new effective ways to introduce innovation factors in public procurement. Two of these new goals are the most important as boosters of a strategy, innovation and sustainability. Both elements have a reciprocal relationship reinforcing each other, and especially because innovation promotes sustainability. In addition, it's important to focus that innovation has its own reason in the objective of getting more efficiency in public services outcomes too. New directives brings us a first innovation concept specific for public procurement. Until this moment, we only have a concept of innovation from tax law, and please pay attention on the four aspects of innovation included in this concept. First of all, innovation for products, for processes, for commercialization, and for organization. About PPI modalities, as previous lecturers has said, General PPI has two main procurement modalities. By one side, we have commercial procurement as the usual form of PPI with some kinds of it. And in the other side, we have the pre-commercial procurement, which consists, as we said, in the purchase of services related to innovation, so R&D services, not including, but the results. Let me analyze its modality through the concept of each one. As you can see in this slide, we have to manage some different concepts. And firstly, we talk about PPI in a general sense as an administrative action to promote innovation from the public demand and as a mechanism in which contracting authorities act as alliance customers for innovative goods which are not available yet. As a modality of general PPI, here you have the PPIT notion too. And secondly, we talk about pre-commercial procurement, PCP, as a procurement of services related to innovation, not as a procurement of the result of these services. That is a very important difference. PCP involves the objective of prototyping several new solutions for some needs set by public sector. And in addition, PPIs involve three features. First, that public purchases does not result the result of these services for its own exclusive use. Second, that the risk and the benefits are sharing between public purchaser and provider. And finally, that there is a clear separation of the research phase and the development phase from the commercial phase. It's not included. Now, here you have a summary of the differences between PPI and PCP from three perspectives. First of all, from the perspective of the legal system. As Susan said before, PCP has a soft law. From the perspective of the feature of each one, and finally, from the goals analysis approach of each one. Now I'm moving to the 10 main keys of the new directive in terms of innovation, and I'd like to stress two of them. First of all, about the strategic approach of procurement from the directive perspective, and second, the new award procedure specific for innovation, the innovation partnerships. And for this one, as you can see, the specific feature of this procedure is the possibility of purchasing the innovative result of the services related to innovation without organizing a new award procedure. For me, that means an interesting possibility for innovative enterprises. It's a very important difference. And now we go to some practical aspects to take into account. In fact, PPI implementation, I think, needs three basic factors. The first, the need of the concept of public procurement as a strategic activity with all the consequences that this feature has. Second, the specialization of the professionals involved is required in all the cases. And finally, some tools for knowledge transfer are necessary too, and mainly e-procurement tools and public-private partnerships tools. After that, the question for me is how to design friendly, innovative public procurements, public contracts. And in this sense, firstly, we have to remind that innovation must be present in all the phases of the procedure, not only in the contract design or in the selection and award phase, but also in the execution phase too. And in the design phase, especially, we have to define needs in an appropriate way, but we have to design the contract in terms of efficiency, so as a solution. And we have to include the specific legal and economic conditions about innovation in the procurement documents. And here you have some examples about this. The possibility of accepting variance, the innovation as an award criteria, for example. Thirdly, we have to define technical specifications as a minimum functional requirements in order to be able to introduce innovation elements. And finally, we have to manage external funding when necessary, of course. For the selection and award phase, we have to take into account, at least, I think, the assist of the use of the competitive dialogue or the procedure with negotiation as new directives perspective is needed, to make a separate ending for each object with highest technology. You know, we can make independent contracts or make separate loads inside one contract, boosting and increasing the use of the design contest, and finally ensure technical specialization of the jury members. In execution phase, two basic items. First, identify and list all the functions of the person responsible of the contract, and secondly, make a continuous evaluation of the levels of quality in the execution of the contract. And for the final phase, I think that in any case, we need some requirement, but let me stress two of them. The first, the need of a specific training plan for public procurers, and this in order to ensure a short and intensive learning curve. And secondly, the need of giving, in our case, from the Advisory Board for Public Procurement of Catalonia, to the public procurers for the innovation contracts that I think as they need to feel comfortable and sure during the innovation procurement procedure. And that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Neus. So now, Raquel.
Thank you, Rosana. First of all, again, I would like to thank you,
The mic.
the Inspire Network and the Catalonian School of Public Administration for the invitation to this really very interesting conference. And really, I have a not very long presentation. I have 3 slides, maybe a bit is intense, but 3. I would like not to insist too much on things that has been addressed by Neus. In our first slide, how is this? Okay. I was going to focus more on the European side, and in particular on the side of the PCPs that are now on the way before the European Commissions and before the European reviewers. In a first part, I would like to give an overview of a picture of the situation of the PPI and the PCPs after the new European directives of 2014. And in a second part, I'm going to talk about legal issues, particular legal issues of the PCPs, and I'm going to talk about 10 legal issues. With regard to the first part, we have, after the directives, we have really 4 figures, 4 procedures, 4 proceedings in the framework of the innovation. 2 of them are in the pre-commercial phase, 2 of them are in the commercial phase. The first one, the pre-commercial procurement, is the only one that is not ruled by the new European directives. As explained before by Susan, this is not law, really, strictly speaking. It's a soft law that is the communication of the European Commission of December 14 of 2007. And the other 3 proceedings innovation partnership, competitive dialogue, and competitive proceeding with negotiation are ruled by the European directives. In order to just to do a summarize, and I would like to focus on the difference among these four proceedings, among these four figures. Basically, as mentioned before, the two first ones are in the pre-commercial phase. Under the pre-commercial procurement, the aim is the procurement of research and development services of innovative products or services that are not available on the market. In the case of the innovation partnership, the aim is the selection of a partner for the research and development of those innovative products and services not available on the market in order to meet certain needs and cover of the procurer. But in addition, and that is the difference, in addition, there is a second purpose, that is the commercial procurement of the resulting products and services, provided they meet certain performance levels and certain maximum costs that are agreed in advance. So that is the difference between the pre-commercial procurement and the innovation partnership in the pre-commercial phase. Both of them are phased procedures. In the pre-commercial procurement, under the communication of the European Commission, there are a number of recommended phases, a phase for the exploring of the solution, the designing of the solution, the prototyping and the testing of the solution. But there is no commercial procurement. The final products and services are not going to be procured under that procedure without prejudice of that the procurers decide to launch a new tender to buy them. But it would be done by means of an independent proceeding. In the case of the innovation partnership, I insist, there is that as a part of the same proceeding, there is a commercial phase for the procurement of the resulting products or services. Also, another difference, and I keep in this pre-commercial phase, the intellectual property rights. That really this is a very important issue with all these figures. In the case of the pre-commercial procurement, as an imposition resulting from the European Commission communication, the IP rights resulting from the PCP cannot be reserved exclusively to the procurers, but have to be shared between the procurers and the bidders. The particular scheme for this sharing is decided in the documents of each PCP, but it is necessary that that sharing exists. In the case of the innovation partnership, the new directive in its Article 31 just mentions that this point will be decided in the documents of the tender, but there is not a compulsory sharing of the IP rights. In the commercial phase, we have two proceedings, the competitive dialogue and the competitive proceeding with negotiation. We are speaking in both cases of the procurement of products or services that are already available in the market. But in the first case, competitive dialogue, the procurer does not know exactly what products and services need to buy. So the bidders are going to propose solutions through a dialogue with the bidders. And in the case of the competitive proceeding with negotiation, the products and services are also identified and will be purchased in the terms resulting from a negotiation with the procedures, with the procurers. The IP rights, in principle, under these figures of the commercial phase, should be, as a general principle, should be assigned to the procurers, the public procurers. So this is like a general view of the 4 instruments or the 4 figures and of the public procurement of innovation. So now I'm going to focus on the PCPs, the pre-commercial procurement, not ruled by the European directives, and I'm going to focus on 10 legal issues resulting from our experience advising in PCPs. Not only in PCPs in the health sector, in the e-health that have been the PCPs with Aquas and with TIC Salud, Decipher and Wired. Also other PCPs in which our legal firm is involved from Germany, for example, in the case of the Human Brain Project, or from Italy in consortium with other procurers of other countries in the case of the PRAISE project, that is a supercomputing project. In light of this experience, as I said, I've selected 10 legal issues. The first 5 legal issues are related to the parties, and the remaining 5 legal issues are related to the contracts. Regarding to the parties, and starting with the first legal issue, the procurers, in this kind of PCPs, although it is possible, PCPs, domestic, let's say, PCPs with domestic procurers, with national procurers, and it is something that happens, for example, in certain Nordic countries, in Denmark, in UK. But the interesting figure is, in this case, are the joint procurements at the European level. The PCPs that are funded by the European Commission under these programs. We have talked before the Horizon 2020 and before the 7th framework program. And in this case, a number of procurers from different member states group to jointly award research and development services through these kind of schemes, PCP schemes, and under these programs mentioned. The key legal issue here is to decide the applicable law, because it is necessary to have one law, one legal system, in order to solve the legal problems that can result from the procedure, from the PCP procedure. Normally, there is an agreement between the different procurers that joined according to these schemes in order to decide things like the applicable law or the courts competent to solve the discrepancies that could occur. And in general, there is a procuring coordinator appointed, and the legal and the tax system of this procuring coordinator will be applicable. The second legal issue refers to the bidders. Here, one important thing refers to the minimum requirements to join the PCPs. And here we have a tricky issue, because it is necessary to find a middle point that allows, on one hand, the access to the PCPs of small companies, of startups, so it is not possible to be very strict or very demanding in terms of, for example, financial capacity, or at the time of requiring certain technical ability, but at the same time it is necessary to make sure that the project is successful and to ensure the seriousness of the bidders. To find this middle point, the trend in all the PCPs is to try to be flexible, especially in the way of proving the technical ability and the financial capacity. So this has been the approach followed in Decipher and Wired. So third legal issue, the consortia. Really, this is jointly with the IP rights, that is the 10th legal issue. The consortia really is a very important issue in all the market consultations days. It's a hot topic in which the bidders are really very interested. And in particular, the issue related to the changes in the consortia during the procedure. The procedure is very long, many things can happen, so it is important to address in advance what changes can be acceptable or not in the composition of the consortia during the PCP. So it is something that... Yeah, the bidders consortia, yeah. So it's something that is also regulated or should be regulated in detail in the documents of the procurement, because it's something that really it's going to happen. For legal issue, the subcontractors, it is important also to regulate in advance what share of the contract could be subcontracted to third parties, and to be transparent in the identification of the subcontractors in advance if possible, or later if there are changes or it is decided to use a subcontractor. Relationships between procurement and bidders, again, here there are a number of issues. The communications in general terms, the philosophy is that all the communications are by electronic systems, although unfortunately by the time being this is not possible for the presentation, for the submission of the proposals in this kind of international projects because of technical issues. There is now a technical technology that allows to guarantee the secrecy of the proposal until the moment of the opening of the proposal. So the communications are mainly digital except for that. Another thing is the importance of the regulation of the conflict of interest, especially having in mind that in many cases, it has happened in some of the PCPs we have been advising, in many cases there are exclusions based on this conflict of interest, so it's important to rule and to regulate in advance what the way to manage them, and also the regulation of the disputes and to include the regulation in the documents of the procurement. And the second part of legal issues refers to the contracts. Here, very rapidly, because of the structure of the PCP with different phases, as has been explained before, it is necessary to have a symmetric system in contractual terms. So here the scheme, although there is not a specific regulation of the PCPs, and this is not in any soft law even, but the general trend is to have a framework agreement governing all the procedure to be signed by the bidders that join the first phase of the proceeding, and in addition to have a number of phase contracts governing the particular and successive phases, and to be signed by the procurers that are going to join the different phases. The contracts award, it has been also addressed before, the importance in advance of having perfectly identified the award criteria, the sub-criteria, and the scoring. One of the criteria has to be compulsorily the price, although in these cases of purchase of innovation, really the price should not be, although it is compulsory by law, it is not, should not be the most important criteria, and normally the scoring used to be very low, maybe 5%. It depends on the PCP, but it is compulsory, but low scoring because of the nature of the purchase. And it is important also to take into account the possibility of excluding bidders in case of not reaching certain minimum scoring in points in one or various criteria. Eighth issue, eighth legal point, prices. Another important issue because the prices should be, just finalizing, the prices, it is necessary to find the fair price in the sense of that it is not under any concept over the market, even taking into account the scheme applied to the IP rights. So in case of that they can be considered to be over the market, it will be an state aids and we would have a legal problem. The payments, okay, it depends on the documents of the tender, that it can be decided certain milestone. And the 10th issue, and sorry, it's the most important one and now very rapidly, but for sure the most important thing of the PCPs in legal terms are the IP rights. We have been yesterday in the European Commission in the review of a PCP. Some people here have been with me yesterday, and the IP rights is always implies long debate with the European reviewers, and for the bidders interested in a PCP is the first thing in which they pay attention because their business depend on how is the scheme of the IP rights. And sometimes it's not an easy thing because it's difficult to sometimes to understand. The clauses can be complex. So very basically, in the case of the PCPs, it is compulsory to have a risk-benefit sharing. The IP rights cannot be reserved exclusively to the public procurers, have to be shared between the public procurers and the bidders. The particular scheme, it's not fixed. It's up to the procurers at the time of the designing of the documents of the procurement. The trend and the recommendation in general terms is to assign the ownership of the IP rights to the public procurements in such a way that the bidder, the procurers reserve just rights of use and development of the IP rights. That scheme has is not absolutely perfect because have two risks, and with this I finish. One, the risk of that the public procurers are finally in the hands of the bidder that owns the IP rights. In order to avoid that situation of lack of competition in the procurement phase, by the time of the procurement of the products and services resulting from the PCP, the solution is to include certain sub-licenses, rights that allow the procurer to use third parties in the commercial part for the procurement of the resulting products and services. And the last risk is the risk of that the bidder that finally owns the IP rights don't develop them, don't put a solution on the market, and in that case, it is also a recommendation of the European programs to include callback provisions under which, in case of no exploitation during a certain time, 3-5 years, the IP rights are go back to the public procurers. So this is a very general view of these 10 legal issues. Thank you.